Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thanks for joining us for our special Sunday update for February the 12th as we track Cyclone Gabrielle towards New Zealand. Overnight, the MetService said that Gabrielle now has a bit of a new name. It is no longer going to be referred to as Tropical Cyclone Gabrielle, simply Cyclone Gabrielle. And that's because it is leaving the tropics, and like all cyclones that leave the tropics, they become extratropical. And in the past, that was sort of known as an ex-cyclone, which is perhaps not the best term because it sounds like it's all gone. But when it's extratropical, like it's going through now, that phase where it loses the tropical portion of it, the storm remains actually at the same power. It's still basically a Category 2 storm. And another thing that changes with this process is some of the peak winds in the middle, they can die out a little bit and fade down and spread out further, but then it can re-intensify, and suddenly that's what we're expecting on Tuesday morning, suddenly see those winds to ramp back up again. And the air pressure might even go lower than it's been over the past day, which is quite remarkable. So that's the reason why it is still very much a cyclone, and nothing's really changed other than the core of the storm has shifted from being tropical air to cold air. Now let me show you what that does. This is a wind map showing the current strong winds across Sunday afternoon. Center of the storm is there, but the strongest winds are in the darker shading just to the northeast, and then the secondary sort of wave of wind ahead of it. Now in the tropics, the worst of the wind would be just around the middle portion. But as it gets extratropical, those strong winds, they fan out. Now the storm might, as I say, it might weaken just a little bit as it tracks down this way, but as it comes into the Auckland and Coromandel areas, it is expected to deepen. Just about every model says that. So that's the reason why we're watching this very carefully. You've got the wind here that is moving down the country because it's turning extratropical and it's spreading out. But you've also got the center which could deepen, and another burst of wind with that as it comes in. So it's getting quite complicated. Take a look at these two models, UK on this side, America on this side. They are very aligned. You can see here it comes into the Auckland area and moves out. We'll show you that once more again because I want to show you where it ends because that's quite important. Now, the difference between the models, there isn't much. Maybe 100 kilometers. That's very normal with a tropical cyclone because they wobble. And I said yesterday, when it goes into that extratropical phase, it gets a bit lopsided. And I think I said how it's like a duvet when you wash a duvet or a big blanket in the washing machine and it all lumps up on one side and the whole thing starts rattling the house. Well, you're kind of getting that happening here. It sort of wobbles a wee bit. The winds suddenly surge up on the other side. And that could be a problem when it comes back in on Tuesday. So this is Tuesday at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's when we think the center of this storm will be coming in and will be deepening as it does so. MetService are also saying exactly the same thing in their advice as well. Good to be on the same page as them. So you can sort of see why there are sort of two parts to the wind, one around the middle and the other one sort of pushing down the country. So let's take a look at the actual tracking. Here we are for this evening. It is still to the north. Now, it passed over Norfolk Island last night at about midnight, 1 in the morning. The air pressure dropped to 958 hectopascals. This one says 972. So as it goes through this process of becoming extratropical, where it leaves the tropics and it gets cold air fueling it, no longer tropical air, the air pressure might go up a wee bit. But like I say, as it heads southwards, still 972 here for noon Monday, but as it heads southwards, you'll see that the rain is intensifying as the system comes down and the strong winds are moving down the country. And then by 4 o'clock in the morning, hard to read, but that says 963. And we've actually seen the Australian model picking 957 out near Waiheke Island. Great Barrier Island out here, further out near the Coromandel. So that means that Auckland does have the chance of having its lowest ever air pressure recording. NIWA this morning put out a great tweet. They did a bit of research and said that the record for Auckland was 970. And so this is looking likely to break the record, and I believe it was 962 or close to that around Cape Reinga. So I'm not sure about if Cape Reinga will break the record, but certainly I think further down we're likely to see that. Now the lower the air pressure, the more unstable it is, but also the more you've got the windy weather. So the deeper that gets, the more isobars you see. It's a bit like a topographical map. When you see all those lines bunched together, the gradient is steep. Another feature to notice here, as I said, there are two areas of wind. You've got the first lot moving down the country and the second lot right around the center. That first set of wind down here, moving down, is likely to also be very windy in places that we don't normally talk about with a storm coming into the north of the country. So Manawatu, Kapiti Coast, over towards Taranaki, those easterlies are going to be very strong, gale force, and then you've got the rain pushing down the eastern side of the North Island as well. So there are a lot of moving parts to all of this. Just finally, wind map here at 4 o'clock in the morning. If you're colorblind, this area here is the most extreme wind, coming up and around like that. So it's an easterly for the lower part of the North Island, a southeasterly for Taranaki, and then it turns around as a southwesterly for Northland and northern parts of Auckland later on. There's the wind map, so you can certainly see that wind just being squeezed in there, and where all the wind meets, that's where the rain is going to be heavy. So we're seeing a lot of heavy rain down the eastern North Island, Coromandel, the eastern side of Northland, and Auckland as well. You're talking 150 to 250 millimetres, and then in the hills and ranges it could be much higher than that. It might be 300, 400, 500 millimetres depending on how slow it all moves. So 4 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon looks as though it might be starting to weaken again a little bit. And that's good news as it moves further to the east. But look at the very strong winds. Southerlies, southwesterlies, gale force, damaging winds, power cuts likely around parts of Northland and Auckland, and windy weather now moving down into the South Island, Canterbury. And the Kaikoura Ranges getting plenty of rain from this system as well. Dry parts of Canterbury will probably like getting some of that rain. Otago and Southland, you're not likely to get very much. A little bit maybe coming in for coastal Southland. You see here at lunchtime on Wednesday, the rain with a southwesterly is coming in there to Canterbury. The storm's moving out to sea. It is weakening still, but still 982 is pretty deep. It's still worthy of keeping a close eye on. But look at this, a clearance in the north and the winds, they start to ease back. That's the good news. And the Chatham Islands, yes, windy and wet, but really just another day in the office for them. I don't think it's going to be too extreme, although they might have some weather warnings issued there. And we get to Thursday. This is really showing a sign of maybe the chance of downpours, afternoon thunderstorms or afternoon showers around the North Island. Still raining around the Kaikoura Ranges, and we've still got a few showers brushing parts of Otago. But if you take a look at our ruralweather.co.nz site, you'll see that the rainfall totals in the south there are not that great. Then we get into Friday. We've got low pressure here. That's the leftovers of it falling away into the Southern Ocean. The Coriolis effect pulling it to the southeast and away from us, and then it disappears. I said in a tweet yesterday, I had to say something positive for you all. Here is some high pressure coming in. It's not very strong at 1017, but it is moving through. Little smiley face there for you. And that is coming through hopefully next weekend. And also up in the tropics, not much going on. A few thunderstorms, a small area of low pressure there near Tonga, but hopefully that is not going to turn into anything else. So we've got a little bit of unsettled weather at the end of the week, but then things do start to ease. Now here's the latest MetService map. Now this could have changed by the time you watch the video. Please do take a look at these warnings. If you live in the North Island, you must check these warnings because they are widespread, and you can see they've got the red alerts now coming up in certain areas, and it's pushing down into the South Island as well. You can find the warnings on our website, Weather Watch, and at Rural Weather. You can also find the warnings on our Weather Watch site under the Maps and Warnings area, but they should appear in your local forecasts as well. But you can look for them and go to the MetService website, just metservice.com, if you need to find the warnings. If you can't, for some reason, find them on our site. So that's all from me for today. We'll be back again on Monday, hopefully. I say hopefully because we're not really sure what's going to be happening with the power and situations like that. We do have some backup plans, but then again, we might have issues, driving and things like that. So we're not too sure, but we've got a plan to do a video tomorrow. We are going to still be providing updates. We've got an office in the South Island as well, so we are going to keep going. But just letting you know, it's a little bit of a strange time. We're not 100% sure exactly how the next day or two will go. But based on the current weather, hopefully not everyone will have damaging weather. That's one thing about our hills and ranges of New Zealand. Yes, it can make the wind and rain worse for some, can also shelter others as well. So we'll see how we go. It will make a lot more sense to people as well once it starts to actually show up on the rain radar. And if you're even still confused, try ruralweather.co.nz. You'll notice that the graphs and the wind maps there just give you a sort of a good glance at when the peak weather might be. However, I have to say, it does sometimes underestimate some of the biggest wind gusts and heaviest rain simply because we just don't get storms like this very often. So that is all. That's all from me for today. Hopefully, we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.